Sweet. Well, thanks, Renee, for doing the interview.
It's a pleasure.
And so what's your role at Independent Music New Zealand?
I've been there for just over 10 years, and for most of the time I was operations manager. I suppose I've still got that title, but at the moment I guess I would call myself mainly the membership services manager, looking after all the members.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how you find it?
It's good. I love, contacting all the people and meeting new labels and just hearing, there's so much diversity out there, and hearing all the new ideas that people are coming up with and new styles of music they came out with. It's really good.
Cool. And how was it when you first got into it, and kind of the music industry in general when you first got into it?
It was quite exciting. I wanted to work in the music industry ever since I was about 13. I discovered BFM, and so right through school I said to all my friends, I'm going to be there one day, and they all went, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then I did end up getting a show on BFM after lots of volunteer hours put in, putting records away and making coffee for other DJs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I just stuck around until they gave me a show, and then after that I finished my degree and applied for a receptionist position at Festival Records.
Cool.
And I got that, and that was amazing. I was so excited because they carried a lot of the local labels at the time. They did Flying Nun and Wildside and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it was a dream come true, pretty much, to get in.
What's happening with Wildside now? Because they're still going on. I know they had Shehad in that, or
they had Shehad, but then Shehad went to one of the majors.
Yeah.
So Murray's not really running the label at the moment anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's got some back catalogue, but he's not really doing any new stuff now. He's busy. He's actually working on Audio Culture, that new website.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That looks awesome.
He's doing quite a lot of writing for that.
I did get in touch with one of the guys from there, but I might jack up something as well.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, Murray or Simon, I think, are the main guys in Auckland doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Simon Griggs.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, cool.
Baby.
What's that?
It was his baby, basically. He came up with the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
And it's good. Yeah.
And what kind of stage are they at now with Audio Culture?
It's launched.
Yeah.
And basically they've got quite a lot of content up already.
Yeah.
And they're just sort of going to just keep adding bands from different
just keep it going.
areas. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Cool.
It's kind of like an endless work, really. They'll just carry on adding stuff forever, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And speaking of getting into the music industry, I know personally there's a lot of challenges involved. It's not all just smooth sailing.
No.
So is there something that, thinking back over the years and that, is there something that you've kind of had to work around or had to come over to keep doing what you're doing?
It hasn't been too bad. I mean, I must admit, when I was a sales rep, there were very few women doing that particular job. So that was a little bit challenging. You had to prove that you were as tough as the guys, which wasn't really my style. I just got on really well with all my customers and tried to make it work that way. But there are a lot of women in the business now. But yeah, for some reason, record company sales back in the day, that was a very boys' club.
Well, yeah. Do you think that gets you through in the personally, I don't know, but I think being yourself, so in other words, rather than trying to be some kind of a bitch or a thing, that it's better just to be
yourself.
Who you are.
And if you're not,
it works in the end, doesn't it?
If you're not particularly tough, it's okay.
Yeah.
You just have to be persistent and just be treat people as you want to be treated, basically.
Yeah.
And I always made a point of, I wasn't very good at doing the hard sell on stuff. I was honest about stuff, and people trusted me, so actually that worked quite well. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing I've noticed too with things like, with IMNZ and with other organisations I've been involved in, like the MMF. People that I've clicked with have not necessarily been, they have been the most honest and just down to earth, and they haven't necessarily been the hardest type of people, but they still know what's what, and they know that putting on some kind of a facade doesn't
work in the end. Well, actually, it works really well for some people, but if that's not you, then you should don't feel that you have to do that.
I mean, a couple of those.
It'll crack at some point.
Yeah. And that's I really clicked with Lorraine Owen.
Oh yeah, she's great.
And that's why
she's very down to earth and friendly and helpful.
Yeah. And I think and some of the people listening to this interview, when you first go to join an organisation, even saying MMF or IMNZ, it can be quite daunting. And
you're dealing with all these people who have heaps of experience and they've been running record labels or managing bands for years.
And I know myself, even to be honest, when I'm at the IMNZ meetings, I love it, and it's really cool. I love the collaboration, but you still get nervous sometimes talking in front of a table of people.
Exactly.
And so it's nothing to worry about, is it?
No,
you just come
not at all.
and try and go to at least. Try and come in physically to where IMNZ is based.
Yeah, meet the people.
And meet the people and
meet the
go
other
from
labels.
there.
And the thing is, when you look at some of those people who have been around for years and they've got really established labels now, they all started somewhere. They were all in exactly the same boat at one point.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's good to remember.
Yeah. I think the people that you want to work with and that too, they remember that too.
Yeah.
They don't forget that.
Yeah. Don't forget where you started.
Yeah. So, as well as working in the industry, you're also a mother of a beautiful daughter.
My little girl's
Sophia,
here.
yeah. And I know from personal experience too with some of my students and that many people believe, with family commitments and that they kind of say, well, I can't do music anymore, or I can't be involved with music. What's your take on that?
It is tough, to be honest. Yeah. I just find I used to go to gigs pretty much every night and was always out supporting the local bands, and I just, have realised I can't go to shows as much anymore, so you have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of juggling involved, and the music industry can be a bit of a late night job, which isn't always compatible with raising a child, because they like to get up really early.
Yeah.
And you're busy all day. But it's totally fine. Like I've found the juggling a bit stressful and exhausting, but it's totally worth it, and you can still do it, and there's no reason why you should give up your passion because you have a family.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially work-wise.
Definitely. No, that's cool. And before you mentioned too, you worked at Flying Nun, which is a pretty legendary label.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I got a job there.
Yeah, I used to walk home from school. We used to, when we were kids, talking about Flying Nun bands. And so what? Tell us a bit about your time with them. What was up with that?
It was really exciting, actually. It was quite an exciting patch in the label's history, I think, because there was Flying Nun and Flying in the import division. So we did distribution of overseas bands as well.
Yeah.
And we were based in a little office in Queen Street, and it was just such an amazing group of people. A lot of them are still out in the industry now. A few of them even work at the Music Commission or at IMNZ.
Yeah.
Bit of a family going on up there.
Yeah.
But the bands that we worked with, I think the first album I had to sell was Love's Ugly Children, Showered in Gold.
Wicked.
And I loved that album, so I was pretty excited. But I got thrown in the deep end. There was no mucking around. It's like, right, out you go, sell this. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But
I saw Floss is at King's Arms now.
Oh, is she?
Working at the King's Arms.
I didn't realise that. I have to go and see her. Oh, cool. We released some amazing things, and we were really lucky. That was during the sort of height of the 90s dance kind of craze as well. With Flying In, we imported lots of house records, and there was a massive club scene, and the bands were doing really well. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. That did take off, especially after Prodigy. Even brought it kicking and screaming to the mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was huge. It was very exciting.
Yeah, no, Love's Ugly Children, they were cool. And they were at a good time because Max TV was also around.
Yes, that's right. That really helped as well. Yeah. People actually got their videos played on TV. And good on Phoebe, because she's pretty much the only one doing it now.
Yeah, I talked to Phoebe and about a couple of my videos too, and she was really great to deal with.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Another good sort out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping with the underground spirit, you're a radio DJ as well.
Yep.
On the uni station BFM. And over the years, BFM's been a bit more supportive of alternative acts and emerging talent than perhaps some of the other mainstream stations.
Yeah.
Or more, I should say more mainstream stations, because B's pretty big.
Yeah, it is pretty big.
And it's been a bit more supportive of those kind of acts over the years. So how did you get involved in that station, and what are your kind of favourite parts of DJing? And
I think I was 13 years old when I first heard BFM, and basically became obsessed with the music that they played. So as soon as I started uni, I went up to the station and offered my services, and that was probably the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But speaking of, going and joining an organisation or getting involved in something.
Yeah, but that's a really cool, just in that statement of saying one of the coolest things that you did was also one of the most terrifying, which it usually is, isn't it, when you do something good.
And to be honest, what happened was I went up in my first year at uni and offered to help, and they sort of gave me a few bits to do, but I was so nervous I actually went away and I didn't come back again for another year. And I finally grown a few more guts and went back again. I thought, no, I'm going to give it a shot this time.
Yeah.
And because I was quite shy, so it was just getting to know all the people that I'd listened to on the radio and helping out and trying to be a relevant part of the station and getting involved. And it's, persistence paid off, basically.
And that's pretty good advice too. So you say, like, trying to be a relevant part of the station.
Yeah. So if you want to do something, make sure that you've got to believe you've got something to contribute that is worthwhile.
Yeah.
But then I expect most people would if they're following their passions. Yeah.
And speaking of kind of the New Zealand part of the industry and the more challenging aspects, when you're struggling as an artist, it can be good to see it can be hard to see the good side.
Yeah.
But they are there, it's just whether you're aware of them or not. So what are some of the better parts of the New Zealand music industry that artists should really remember?
I think the fact that there's a really good community. Like, if you are a particular style of musician, then chances are very high that you can find other like-minded people to work with, and that's a huge help, I think, getting communities together of bands, supporting each other and doing shows together and just, helping each other out as much as possible and just having fun with the music too. Yeah. Collaborations and stuff. The community aspect's really good, and the fact that it's really hard to connect with the fans and it's very hard to get people to buy your music, but there are a lot of passionate fans out there who are willing to give things a try, so I guess once you connect with some people, that's pretty exciting as well. Yeah. Yeah.
And would you agree? I mean, I reckon you've got to be aware of it as well. After you've had so many setbacks, it can be real easy, even without, you don't want to become bitter, but it can happen quite easily.
It can be very easy.
And so you start closing yourself off to all the good things that are around. But if you keep aware of it, there's much to be kind of...
Yeah, and I don't blame people for being bitter either, especially, I think there's quite a few artists or musicians who are around maybe 20 years ago and they're still going.
Yeah.
And they were around at a time when CDs were actually being sold in fairly decent numbers, and I know that that's changed horrendously now, and it's really hard. You might have had a gold record 20 years ago, and now you can't even sell 100 CDs, and it can be very frustrating. And I think, selling music is still probably the goal of most musicians who are taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So I guess, but just don't lose sight of why you're doing it and keep passionate. And if you're angry about the situation, write songs about it, let your anger out through your music. Or, just
definitely.
Be creative with what's going on rather than getting depressed about it.
Yeah. And so what is one of the areas of the industry that you would like to see improved?
I suppose it would be broadcasting opportunities, to be honest. Yeah. I know there's a lot of internet broadcast platforms around, and everyone's got YouTube channels and stuff, which is a really good thing, but I know everything is really fragmented and you don't have like a huge radio hit anymore isn't quite so common, but just to have a little bit more access to radio would be nice, I think, because it is still quite an important part of music discovery as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure as an interviewer that I should put a personal opinion in there, but I totally agree with you on that one. And I think for the listeners out there, we were actually talking before the interview about the fact that it is quite hard to get on radio in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And perhaps if they did take a bit more risk with local bands and bands that have still kind of proved that they can do it, it wouldn't detract any, it wouldn't turn off any listeners, would it?
No.
Really,
No, not at all. People would love it. In fact, people love championing local bands. They actually feel they're part of the station and a part of the music community, and they love that. I think it can only be a good thing.
Yeah. And so what was some of the, speaking about local bands, what were some of the venues that you enjoyed going to that may have been closed now, because there's been some great ones?
There have been some great ones. Boy, there was a place called the Dog Club, which was good, and Luna Lounge in Simon Street. There's a really cool place called Arcadia that was in Simon Street as well. They did gigs and they also had plays and stuff like that there too.
Did you go to the Temple?
Yes, used to go to the Temple and the Box and Calibre. Yeah, I went to quite a few clubs as well. There are quite a lot. I'm trying to think what's the saddest one. The Glue Pot, that was a shame when that closed. Heaps.
So the saddest venue in terms of when it closed, or just the saddest venue?
Well, a bit of both, really. People did miss it, yeah.
Yeah, the temple was great, eh?
The temple was very cool.
Yeah.
I'm just really pleased the King's Arms is still going because I love that place.
Yeah. They tried to shut it down because of noise.
I know, and that would have been a complete disaster for the Auckland music scene, or the New Zealand scene in general. The other place I really love at the moment is Golden Dawn. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
They put on, it's not huge, but they put on really interesting artists, and there's a great vibe there. It's really good fun.
Yeah. Cool. And tell us just a bit more about that. Is it usually, do they have a door charge with bands, or is it?
Yeah, if there's a band playing, they'll charge a minimal amount. It's not very much. If they don't have a band, you can just go in there and have a beer, and they don't charge you.
Cool. Perhaps one of the hardest things about being an emerging muso or just an aspiring kind of musician is that you really do need a lot of advice. Whether you take that on board or not as a musician, whether you take the advice you're given is totally up to you, and it's your responsibility. But sometimes it can be hard to know where to go for that advice. Even, like I say, I mean, IMNZ is brilliant, and so musicians should be looking at that organisation as well as the MMF and APRA if you're a songwriter. So there are these organisations around, but I think it's easy for people that work in the music industry full time, or even just a lot. It's easy for them to forget that not everyone does, and a lot of, especially younger bands, they've never worked in an office, let alone one involved in the music industry. So they don't have a clue.
And even bands, that have been around for years are still trying to get their heads around the difference between PPNZ and RIANZ and all the collection societies and how you sign up and that sort of thing.
Yeah, most definitely. I think, too, I mean, creative people can have quite conflicting attitudes when it comes to the business side of something, and sometimes can be repelled by it. Which
is understandable.
Yeah, definitely. But they can mix, and I think you can, if you can educate yourself, you can definitely still be creative, but just be but just be a bit more onto it at the same time. Yeah,
make sure that you're taking all the opportunities that come along.
And not getting eaten by sharks, totally.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's some advice that you'd have for a muso?
For a muso?
Or a music fan trying to get into the business? Doesn't have to be someone that plays.
I would say, actually, there's a really good booklet that comes out every year. The New Zealand Music Commission, each May, for music, publishes a thing called the May Book. It's like a handbook.
Yeah.
And I would say definitely get yourself a copy of that, because it goes through all the different societies like APRA and AMCOS and RIANZ and PPNZ, which have now changed to become Recorded Music New Zealand, by the way. They've merged. And they're going to make the collecting a little bit easier. But get hold of that handbook from the Music Commission, and it's got stuff about radio, New Zealand on air, Creative New Zealand. It's kind of like a go-to guide for every aspect of the industry that you might need to work with. Yeah, and take it from there.
And so where can people that read or listen to this interview, where can they get the
May Book? They can just head to the New Zealand Music Commission website, nzmusic.org.nz, and drop them an email and get them to send one out to you.
Okay,
basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
And hopefully everyone's writing down all these facts.
Yes. Hopefully.
Don't just go and have a dozen and then forget all this info that we're giving you.
Because they give you all the basics, and then you can get in touch with each of the organisations to find out a little bit more. But they'll give you the basic blueprint of what you need to do to sign up for songwriting rights and that sort of thing.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Renee, for the chat.
That's all right. My pleasure.
And, just one last question. So if you had a microphone and whatever you said could be heard by every musician or music fan in the country, but you could say one sentence to them, what would that sentence be?
Be nice sounds a little bit hippie, but it's what I mean, really. Just be civil and polite to everybody that you deal with.
Very cool.
And there'll be a lot more chance that they'll help you.
Yeah. Agree 100%. Thank you very much.
That's all right.